The governing All Progressive Congress has set its national convention for February next year. The chairman of Progressive Governors Forum, Atiku Bagudu, disclosed this after a closed-door meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari at the State House in Abuja. The governor said the new February 2022 decision is a product of wild consultation. The delegation included the APC Interim National Chairman, Mai Mala Buni.
Progressive Governors Forum discussed the issue of national convention of the party, and they mandated us to come and discuss with the president as party leader to give the inputs of the governors so that the party and the president will consider in agreeing a date for the national convention. And yesterday, part of the input we got was that we still have 4 states which are in the process of completing their congresses. Anambra, understandably because of election, Zamfara, and 2 others that because of logistic challenges are yet to complete. So, and then Christmas is around the corner. And then early January will be very busy with Ekiti. So the governors, based on all that, made an input that we think the party and the president might graciously consider February, and President is favorably disposed.
They have suggested to the party, and Mr. President has concurred, so we are going ahead to plan for the convention in February. And part of the reason why even the governors met yesterday, and almost 20 of the 22 governors attended, so it is in consultation to that effect. So it's a well-consulted, well-thought-out plan.
President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, had also met with President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa in Abuja. He says leaders of the All Progressive Congress are working hard to reconcile members of the party ahead of his next national convention. The Senate president says all parties must unite to prevent rancor-free APC convention and to ensure that a stable party emerges ahead of 2023. Lawan also spoke on Electoral Act Amendment Bill currently waiting for assent before President Buhari.
You know that we have impending issues in our party. We have our congresses still to be conducted in some states, few states, about 2 or 3. And of course, going forward, how we are able to reconcile the different shares of opinions that disagreed in the party. And you recall that the party, with the endorsement of Mr. President, had constituted a National Reconciliation Committee under the chairmanship of the distinguished Senator Abdullah Adamu. And we are very optimistic that that committee, with all other leaders in the party, will do everything possible to reconcile our people in the different parts of the country who might have disagreed. You also know that we have legislations that are awaiting the consideration of Mr. President. And for us in the legislature, we have finished our job of passing the bills, particularly the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. It's now for Mr. President to engage with his assistants and those who normally advise him for him to take the next most appropriate action. And we are also very desirous of ensuring that the APC is so stable before the Congress, the convention ultimately, because we want our convention to be hitch-free.
Let's talk about all of this, Tundu and Dr. Abati. Tundu.
Well, of course, we want a hitch-free convention from the ruling party. Anything less would be rather embarrassing, considering that PDP managed to pull theirs off. But in the midst of all of this, I do recall that there have been reports from a group, well, the youth group of the APC, protesting, again, another group, against the extension of the caretaker committee and saying that they will hold their own convention in February. So between now and February, the Mai Mala Buni committee has its work cut out to really reconcile all the different factions, because it would be monumentally embarrassing. So I'm actually glad that they've given themselves enough time to work out all the kinks. And, you know, I hope that they do succeed.
Dr. Vasi?
Well, you know that the issue in the All Progressives Congress, started long before now, but most recently during the conduct of the wards and congresses across the country. And in some parts of the country, you had congresses being held in separate places. In Ogun State, for instance, in the state capital, there were two major congresses producing parallel, ESCOs in the same state. In fact, there was even the outbreak of violence. Also here in Lagos, there were parallel activities, and it was the same across the country. And because of this, there is clearly division within the party. There are those who are saying that the caretaker convention organizing committee for the party, what they call the CCEPC, should not be allowed, which is led by Mema Labuni, should not be allowed to conduct the convention. But then, of course, even some of the governors who were opposing Mema Labuni at some point turned around and passed a vote of confidence in him. And, on the strength of that, he met with the president, and it will look like the president, who is the leader of the All Progressives Congress, endorsed the position of the governors. But yes, February 2022 convention, I guess there's enough time for all the parties to reconcile. The big fear, of course, is about 2023 and how, positions will be zoned. And I guess that the big prize is the position of the presidency. And of course, that within the party, we've seen different tendencies, which is normal in a political party as you move towards the general election. Everybody will express their interest. Everyone will try to test their political base and to see whether they can run away with the top prize and become the flag bearer for the party. But whatever happens at the end of the day, because we as onlookers cannot dictate to a political party what they do with their own processes eventually. But whatever they do should be governed by the rule of law, which is what some members of the party are conversing. Because if anything were to be done outside the rule of law, then certain persons will have been pushed aside, wittingly or unwittingly. Second, INEC, after the 2019 general election review, kept stressing the point that internal democracy is important in all our political parties, be it the APC, be it the PDP, because it is then that, the party can properly consolidate as structures trying to win political power, rather than structures that serve as special purpose vehicles to certain powerful individuals within the party. The third issue, of course, is that there is need for reconciliation within the party. You recall, I don't want to embarrass anybody by mentioning names, you recall that within the APC, there's a vision down the line, in the same way that you have it in PDP. But at the end of the day, reconciliation is important, and we hope that the APC, the party that says, well, it's done well for Nigerians, I'm quoting them, and that they would like to be rewarded again in 2023. If they project any image of division, then of course that could work against the long-term interest of the political party. But, it looks like with President Buhari still in the saddle, still in the office, his authority alone can help to correct a lot of things.
Great insights. Thank you, both of you. That's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rotus, we have Michael, we have Adesua, we have Aaron to give us updates on Africa, global business, COVID-19, and sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rotus Adiri is here to give us an African business update. Over to you, Rotus. Good morning.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, all our viewers. We kick things off with the Monetary Policy Committee meeting for the here in Nigeria. This is the final meeting of the year. They met yesterday. Today is the concluding day for the meeting. And, well, there hasn't been any change to the benchmark rates in a while. In the last meeting in September, all rates were held constant, 11.5%, cash reserve ratio at 27.5%, and the liquidity ratio at 30%. And we're not really I'm not expecting any changes to take place, pretty much because of the accommodative stance that the central bank has taken with respect to all the interventions in different sectors of the economy. I was talking to a player in the solar energy space, and I actually didn't know that the central bank had a facility even in that space as well. So from renewables to manufacturing to healthcare. So this, you saw the economic third quarter growth figures, which will give the central bank a case to say that yes, things have been moving along gradually in terms of recovery. So 4.03% in the third quarter. The central bank will also, I believe, at the MPC meeting, at the outcome, they will also talk about the foreign exchange rates. Was pretty much must-see TV at the September meeting with the whole Aboki FX stuff. Even in July, before that, removing the BDCs. The rates, at least on the parallel side, did appreciate or depreciate about 5.75, but since then it's come down to about 5.30 or so. We've seen an appreciation to the reserves, about 41 billion as at last count, which has allowed the central bank to intervene in the market. So that's also going to be mentioned as well. But all in all, unless barring any surprises, we should see the rates maintained at 11.5%. Still with the central bank, there was a stakeholder engagement meeting on the e-Naira between the Central Bank of Nigeria and payment processors, switching companies, fintechs in Lagos, where they were talking about how to deepen the adoption for the e-Naira. So they're looking for more collaborations. They tasked these tech companies to look for more innovative ways through which the e-Naira can be adopted. And I think even at the MPC meeting later today, we'll probably get more updates on the number of transactions that have taken place with the e-Naira and adoption. I remember as at last count, there were about 160 or so countries around the world that had adopted, we've seen downloads with respect to the e-Naira. So that should also come up. So Rakia Mohammed, who is in the Information Technology Department of the Central Bank, was the one that headed this meeting along with other members of the central bank, discussing with the payment providers on how to increase adoption. So again, in addition to FX, in addition to the economy, we should definitely hear updates on the e-Naira at the meeting today. We move to Ghana. Since we are mentioning monetary policy committees, Ghana surprised markets by hiking their benchmark interest rate by 100 basis points to 14.5%. One of the major reasons why they did that was because of inflation. And I'm actually sorry, inflation will also be mentioned by, I expect, the central bank. That's also been decelerating in Nigeria. But back to Ghana. Ghana's inflation has gone from 7.5% in May to about 11.5% as of October. So that has jolted the Bank of Ghana. Dr. Ernest Addison is the central bank governor in Ghana, and he said that they wanted to head off inflation, and that's the reason why they hiked the rates. We haven't seen a rate hike in a number of years in Ghana. In fact, just 6 months ago, the Bank of Ghana cut the benchmark rates to 13.5%. And now here they are hiking it again. We haven't seen a rate hike in Ghana since 2018. So again, but that's mostly because of inflationary concerns. Also, the cedi has depreciated a bit against the dollar, so that's also adding some pressure there over in our neighbors over in Ghana. So they've raised the rate. We'll stick with Ghana. Fuel prices are expected, that is the per litre cost of fuel in Ghana is expected to hit 7 cedis a litre by the end of the year, according to the IES, which is the Institute for Energy Security. And they're saying that as a result of what we've seen with fuel prices, international global oil prices rising, winter period is coming, or it's pretty much already here, and so heating requirements and so on is going to push up demand for fuel. OPEC is keeping steady with their, as far as output cuts are concerned, until 400,000 barrels a day until maybe April of next year. So fuel prices are supposed to increase. Now, Ghana has deregulated their downstream sector since about 2015 or so, and they've included a lot of levies. There's like ex-pump price of fuel in Ghana, about 30 to 40% of it is taxes. In order to try to cushion the blow of the increase in fuel prices, they suspended another new levy that was a price stabilization levy that was implemented in November, beginning of this month. They said they would take that off and another one, but it still hasn't really impacted the price of fuel. It's still climbing. And analysts are saying it's mainly because of the pass-through effect of the depreciation of the cedi and all those other taxes that the Ghanaian government has levied on fuel in that country. And then still in Ghana, finally, when the 2022 budget announcement was announced, Ghana introduced a 1.75% tax levy on electronic transactions, remittances, mobile money transfers, bank transfers, and mobile vendors are saying that it's going to put them out of business because there are already a lot of taxes that are already applied to electronic transfers. So look, the country, as far as the budget is concerned, they need more funds. That's why you're seeing taxes being raised. That's how the fiscal side responds to fiscal constraints. In that taxes on fuel, electronic transactions, you'll see these things rise. But there's an impact on the everyday Ghanaian. And so, that's what we're seeing with mobile money operators pushing back. And that's our African business update for today.
All right. Thank you so much, Rotus. One thing is certain, the Ghanaian government needs money. Why? It's got a big tax to GDP ratio. And its currency, the cedi, is really suffering against the dollar. I think it was sort of like knocking off a couple of zeros. Is it redenomination, they call it, that was done to the cedi a couple of years back, and the new benchmark has now stabilized against the US dollar. Increasingly over the years, we've seen those pressure accrue on the cedi. And why are those pressure accruing on the cedi? Because Ghana doesn't have enough reserve, to balance things out. Pretty much a system that works in Nigeria here, that's what works in Ghana. Not enough reserve to balance it out. The economy is still about 41% tilted towards gold. Then about 21% now to oil they just found, I think out of the Jubilee field somewhere, in Ghana. And some other, coal, cocoa and the likes, like our second largest exporter of cocoa. But you can see the effect of all of this. Post-COVID, the pressures have started to come. Ghana have been able to stabilize their inflation rate for quite some time. But now, all of a sudden, it jumped from about 7, 8, 9% to about 11% now. And that's why you see the first thing they're doing, unlike what Erdogan is doing in Turkey, because Erdogan is the only one I know that he keeps reducing interest rates to fight inflation. They have to put up interest rates, funny guy, Erdogan in Turkey. They have to increase interest rates to about 14.5%, to be able to fight the inflation they're facing. And there's a knock-on effect. So the other stories you talked about are the knock-on effects of this, inflation in the economy. There's a knock-on effect on price of petrol. There's also a knock-on effect because the government now is now trying to get some more revenue to be able to defend probably the currency and stabilize the cedi. And how are they doing that? More taxes. So that's why they're taxing that. But people, mobile money operators in Ghana, are beginning to complain that 1.72% levy would really affect, financial inclusion in the country. So something has to be done as regards this. And I hope we're taking these lessons and learning from Ghana. We can't wait for the MPC today and see the results out.
Well, on the monetary policy stance that you are, expecting will be taken by the Central Bank of Nigeria, well, all of that, I guess, is based on certain concrete basis. One, some of the policies introduced recently by the CBN under Emefiele, the sanitization of the foreign exchange market by taking the bureau de change out of it, the move after cryptocurrency, the move after Aboki FX. And if you see some of the effects, there's been deceleration, in a sense, within the, in terms of inflation. There's also been improvement in terms of liquidity supply. And then there's also been an increase in external reserve. But do you think that all those measures that have resulted in the success stories that the CBN is celebrating, to what extent would they be sustained?
That's a very good question. So, you know, look, the reserves appreciated pretty much thanks to oil prices to an extent, but then you know that OPEC cuts have impacted us. So that was really more of the Eurobond and then the special drawings rights from the IMF. So that was, a one-off in such. But the interventions that you've seen, those look like they're likely to continue. Don't forget, there's also the 9% rate that was cut down by 400 basis points to 5% moratorium on loans. That's still out there. So, I mean, as far as other macro, we've seen the GDP numbers. We've continued to grow. So it's hoped that unless there's a shock, we should continue the trajectory of marginal growth that we've continued. As Rufai even pointed out the other day, we're above population growth in terms of GDP. So fingers crossed it's maintained.
Well, I'm quite, what's the word? Well, you explained the rationale behind that e-levy in Ghana, that 1.75%, trying to, revenue generation essentially. But doesn't it seem like a big U-turn? What we call cash-free policy here in Ghana, they call it cash light. Everybody's going to go around with cash now, and Rufai is not going to be pleased to hear that. But really, you don't want that kind of double taxation. Isn't that a bit of a step backward?
It is, and some of the mobile money operators actually did mention that. But Tundu, when you need money, you have to look everywhere possible. So we'll see what the impact is. Because there were even some vendors who said that they would suspend, or not even, one of them was quoted in an article saying that they're not going to bother with electronic transactions as far as allowing it to happen because they don't want to pay any fees. So we're seeing some pushback already, but when you need money, you got to tax.
Oh dear. Well, thank you, Reuters. Moving on now to more business updates. Michael Wilson joins us from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
The key factors considered.
Good morning. The only story in town really is the reappointment of Jerome Powell as chairman of the Fed by Joe Biden last night. But just as important, Lael Brainard, this very clever woman whom we were talking about yesterday, who is this is the really interesting thing, and we can discuss this after I've been through the rest of the markets. But the really interesting thing is she is now vice chair of the Fed, and she is also a Democrat, which is very important indeed, clearly for political reasons. So it was felt that she'd be quite dovish if she actually got the chairman or the chair's job. She didn't. That's still with Jay Powell. But this combination is going to be very interesting indeed. And of course, the markets reacted in a very spiky way, really, I think is the only way to describe this, because they can't really make up their minds as to whether this is going to be a dovish double header or one which is actually squeezing the economy. Again, we can discuss this after I've been through the rest of it. So let's just take a quick look at Asia Pacific. Japan on holiday today. China, some report actually that the government in China, now here's another interesting thing, and I can't verify this unfortunately, but the market is saying, market commentators are saying that the Chinese government is actually putting money into the property market. Now, I'm not sure, I cannot confirm this, but that's what the market is in fact reacting to. And the sort of the price action, as far as the market's concerned, follows what happened in the United States. I'll come on to the detail of that. Mainland China, Shanghai Composite up about 1/3%. More tech-centric CSI 300 unchanged. Now, there's an interesting IPO coming up. China tech giant NetEase is launching a $500 million IPO for its music business. And they're doing this in Hong Kong. It's called Cloud Village. It will offer 16 million shares at a price between 190 and 220 Hong Kong dollars. The final price not yet been set. So let's go to the United States, and stock futures basically steady overnight. Dow's up about 35 points. These are futures, not what happened yesterday. Stocks initially reacted quite positively to that announcement yesterday that Jerome Powell's nominated for a second term. But again, this is really the interesting thing. What is Lyle Brainard actually going to do? Because she will interestingly be in charge of monetary policy. That's the important thing. So again, people are discussing this, and they will continue to discuss this for a few days. She's not put herself up for interview so far. I'm sure she will, but she's not actually doing it so far. So basically, the dust is taking rather a long time to settle in the United States. But I was talking to a number of people yesterday before this all happened, and they were saying this is the only story of the week. And of course, as it's a shortened week because of Thanksgiving, no surprise there. Let's talk about the UK briefly. Bulb Energy is the latest and the largest energy company to go into administration. 1.7 million customers suffering as a result of that. But Ofgem is saying, this is the regulator saying, that people will be okay. They'll be shifted to another supplier. Of course, what happens about prices is another matter altogether. The online bank, Atom Bank, is cutting its working day for its employees to 4 days a week. Now, this is another interesting movement that's happening over here, and it may well be happening with you. What employers are now beginning to say is that they're going to have longer paid holidays for employees, because they're realizing that because of things like this that we're talking on right now, in other words, the internet, employees are working 24/7, and they don't think that's a very good thing, and they're suffering through a lot of mental health issues as a result of that. So this is what this is about. It doesn't necessarily mean the staff will be working less, because what tends to happen is that people who are on holiday tend to think that they're missing out on something if they're and the weekend as well, and they're working 24/7. This is something which is the way in which work is actually changing because of the internet, because of connectivity stretching all the way around the world. Oil has staged what I think we can call it a corrective rally. It rose to about 79.45 yesterday. OPEC is seeing its compliance levels about 100%, which means that, as far as I take it, that OPEC Plus's capacity to raise production and beyond what they've already said they're going to do is rather limited. That's why oil has actually staged a bit of a correction. But of course, all this could change given the cold winters coming up. And gold, basically, well, not knowing where to travel, to be honest, because depends on what you actually feel as though the new face of the Fed, as it were, is going to be with these two in charge, particularly a Democrat in charge of monetary policy. That's the global view, but that's the big story, really. What Lyle Brainard's going to do.
Okay. Yes, back to that big story. I think it's interesting to see that President Biden, despite objections from members of his own party, the left-leaning Democrats, has decided to go ahead to vote for stability, continuity, and and adopt the traditional non-partisan way in deciding to keep Jerome Powell in that chair, in that office. And then Bernard, who seemed like a way of pacifying the leftist Democrats. I think that's quite interesting, because under Donald Trump, this kind of choice would probably not have happened. Now, it looks like, in spite of that, there will still be some drama in Congress over this choice that he has made, particularly coming from those who accuse Jerome Powell of not doing enough to address poverty issues or even climate change. But what do you expect when this matter comes up before Parliament?
I think there'll be a lot of noise about it, quite honestly. I mean, I don't know which way it's going to go. It's very, very difficult to predict this, because yesterday, when I was talking to people, they were convinced that Biden would not reappoint Jerome Powell, because Jerome Powell is a conservative, is a Republican, and therefore it was felt that somehow it would change. So this double heading of it, particularly putting a Democrat in charge of monetary policy, I think is very, very interesting indeed. So I mean, it's actually quite a neat decision if you think about it, isn't it? Because it's kept somebody who at least has appeared to be in control of monetary policy in the chair's job, as it were. But Lyle Brainard, who is I mean, her history is really interesting. What she is somebody who believes in regulation, which Republicans tend not to do, but she's a Democrat, clearly. But she believes in that kind of thing. So she's bringing quite, although people feel that she's a bit of a dove as far as monetary policy is concerned, she goes her own way. She's always been, when it's come to votes, because she's been a Fed governor, she's always been what the Americans call an outlier. In other words, she's somebody who doesn't go along with the mainstream thought, and she's now in a very powerful position to do that. So it says, well, it throws a lot of questions, doesn't it, Doctor? Really, I mean, that's what we're saying. I don't know which way it's going to go, but it's a very, very interesting appointment, and it's a sort of it's quite a sensible one, I suppose, if you want continuity, but you also want Democrat change as well. That's how I see it at the moment. But again, I think it's going to take a long time for the dust to settle, and you're quite right. There'll be a lot of discussion about this.
So I thought the big story was supposed to be what came out of UK. Prime Minister Boris Johnson was giving a speech. He forgot his plot and started talking about Peppa Pig. Is this man losing hands on the economy at a time where companies are beginning to fold up? A clear case in sight is that of Bulb yesterday, 1.7 million subscribers. Kwesi Kwarteng, the business secretary, assured everybody that no energy company will go bust. But Bulb, one of the cleanest energy producing company, because they produce totally, they give renewable energy, clean energy. They've gone bust, and Britain is saying they will decarbonize by 2050.
I don't wish to defend the business secretary. He didn't actually say that no companies would go bust. What he said was that nobody would be without power, and that's what's happening at the moment. That's a totally different thing. So what happens is the safety net of the regulator will extend to these 1.7 million customers, and they won't be without electricity. The problem is twofold. Number one, they'll be paying more for their bills, and number two, as you quite rightly observe, and we've talked about this before, the business model is actually the business model is no good as far as having a cap on the prices that minor and smaller energy companies can actually give to their customers. Once that cap happens, it ceases to be a business. That's what the organisation is saying. As far as Boris Johnson is concerned, I was talking to the father of one of his closest advisors yesterday, and I put this. I didn't speak directly to the person. I spoke to this guy's father, and I said, I put this question, which is what on earth is going on with this guy? And he genuinely has no mind for detail. I mean, it's disgraceful when somebody gets up like that in front of the CBI, in front of the bosses, and forgets their notes, and then starts to talk about Peppa Pig. And what he eventually did was he sort of grasped that what he should be talking about was creativity. That was really what his speech was going to be about. And he gradually turned it round. But it was not a great day for the Prime Minister. You're absolutely right. It's rather weird.
All right, for some weird reason, I woke up watching Peppa Pig this morning. Great watch, I should say. Maybe Boris will try it out. Thank you so much, Michael. For updates on COVID-19 pandemic, Adesuwa Omoro is here with us. Adesuwa, by any chance, are you watching Peppa Pig too?
Not grabbing the headlines with COVID. No, I'm not watching Peppa Pig. Good morning, Tundu, and good morning, Dr. Abachi. Well, the overall number of COVID-19 cases have surpassed 258 million amid a global race to vaccinate against this infectious disease. However unequal that vaccination is, well, the death toll also continues to climb, with Europe responsible for a chunk of the fatalities and the cases in recent weeks. By Thursday, we should get a breakdown of the weekly movement of this pandemic by the WHO epidemiological report. But so far, at least 7.4 billion doses of vaccines have now been administered. Although China has administered the highest number of COVID-19 doses, it remains one of the very few countries maintaining a zero-tolerance approach to this pandemic. Since last year, with severe and sudden lockdowns, infection rates in China being reported officially in the single digits as at now. Well, in Nigeria, a moment ago, the latest data release shows 36 new cases and 0 deaths were reported from 7 states and the Federal Capital Territory. The NPHCDA, which is the primary agency for vaccination in the country, on the other hand, is reporting that in the last 24 hours, an additional 30,709 people received their first jab, while 14,562 others showed up for their second shot across the 36 states of the Federation, as well as the Federal Capital Territory here in Abuja. And that's the vaccination exercise so far in Nigeria. We have above 6.1 million people now receiving at least one dose, and another at least 3 million people fully vaccinated in the country. This is as the country hopes to vaccinate 50% of its targeted population by the end of January next year. Staying in Nigeria, the Nigerian Food and Drug Administration says the country has now met the WHO's conditions for local vaccine manufacturing. For a lot of people who wondered why we are not producing locally, well, we are now being told it was more of regulatory capacity. Now, part of the requirement is to expand and to equip 2 drug and vaccine laboratories, one in Yaba area and the other in Oshodi, both of them in Lagos. Although the WHO gave Nigeria 868 recommendations, the NAFDAC boss, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, in a statement yesterday said Nigeria has now successfully met 368 of those recommendations. And she added that after meeting those 368, Nigeria currently has no more recommendations to meet. However, it is expected that the WHO will be sending a team to come and verify and evaluate before a certification, a formal certification is given to Nigeria. The government in Nigeria says COVID-19 vaccines and malaria vaccines will be prioritized for manufacturing. Well, still on vaccines this morning, guys, a statement published yesterday by the Gavi Alliance, which enables vaccine distribution, especially to poorer countries across the world, said almost 100 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine from Europe has begun arriving Africa. Now, this batch of 99.6 million doses is to be delivered through COVAX, and of course, it's part of the EU's pledge to share at least 500 million doses of vaccines in the coming months with the most vulnerable countries. Now, a breakdown in that statement that I saw shows that Nigeria is to receive 2.76 million doses of this single-shot vaccine. Other countries on the list include Niger, Guinea, Conakry, Mauritania, Central African Republic, who are all receiving below 500 doses. So far, Nigeria has like the highest doses to be received in this first batch. There are other countries such as Djibouti, which is receiving just 50,400 doses. Togo is to receive at least 633,000 doses. And of course, the Republic of Congo, we get 230,400 doses. To Kenya, very quickly, still in Africa, where citizens will have to show proof of full vaccination to gain access to government services, public transport, public places such as national parks, schools, bars, restaurants, and this will come into effect on the 21st of next month. Now, the Health Minister, Makigwe, announced this yesterday. He said the country is also planning to commence a mass vaccination exercise on Friday this week. However, as he was releasing that statement, Amnesty International criticized the country, saying that it could not and it cannot vaccinate the majority of its population in 4 weeks ultimatum it is giving. And finally, there is no doubt that Europe is caught on the horns of a dilemma. Now, a significant part of the population do not want to get vaccinated, nor do the people want extra restrictions on their day-to-day life. In Germany yesterday, the health minister said to the people that they will either get vaccinated, recover, or die by the end of the winter. Now, his rather grim description of the reality comes as hospitals in the country are running out of intensive care unit beds, and as acting Chancellor Angela Merkel says, the current restrictions on ground do not go far enough.
Well, Kenya. The issue in Kenya is that Kenya has seen an upsurge in the infection rate. Only about 8.8% of its adult population has been vaccinated so far. And so, out of concern, the government has now said, look, from next month, unvaccinated people will have their access restricted in many parts of the country. But there are many in Kenya also who are very skeptical about this. They are saying that look, this will encourage bribery, it will lead to corruption, it may even discourage more people from taking the vaccine because they're likely to ask questions, what exactly is going on? And at least one lawyer has gone to court to say that this is a violation of human rights. But the other issue is that, look, Kenya, like many other African countries, has issues in terms of access to vaccines, has issues in terms of funds. But more importantly, there are issues in terms of awareness. In many parts of Kenya, people do not believe when they hear that COVID-19 is as serious as it's projected to be. And the recommendation has been made to the Kenyan authorities that perhaps instead of coming up with this COVID mandate, maybe what should be done is to ramp up the communication strategy, the information mass awareness mobilization strategies of the government. Well, the EU, yes, has kept part of its pledge by sending the first batch of the 500 million doses that it promised. And, I think that's impressive, in my view, a good beginning, considering the fact that we had said earlier that many of these developed countries, they just make pledges, they do not follow up with action. But this is a case of, the European countries. This was coordinated, I think through the European Commission, now providing the first batch of doses at a time when Europe is going through a fourth wave. We talked about lockdowns across Europe, resulting in riots in Austria, in Netherlands, even in Germany on Monday. They recorded over 30,000 cases of infection. And yet, that did not stop the process, of keeping to pledges. This, I think, for me, is what is instructive. But all these vaccines that are coming in, it's not every African country that can manage them. But the over 2 million that we get, I think that would be a major contribution to the mass vaccination program that we're carrying on at the moment. And Faisal Shoaib, the Director General of the MPA-CDA, had announced before now that we were expecting Johnson & Johnson vaccines from the African Gavi Alliance, processed through COVAX. But have we taken delivery yet? Do you know?
No.
Okay.
I do not have that information at the moment, but I do not think that we have taken delivery because the statement was released just yesterday.
I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of coercive measures like what's been suggested in Kenya. But on the other hand, it's easier said than done, isn't it, to start saying, oh, the government should sensitize people and what have you, because there is a huge mistrust. And it's not even if you have a particular administration in Kenya, in Germany, in America, in Nigeria, wherever, if this particular administration is showing impressive probity, there is a lack of trust in government through the years, through the decades, that people all over the world have, so that they're rejecting government messages. So even if you blare those messages from every loudspeaker you can, people are going to still think that you're trying to get them killed. That misinformation has really taken hold all over the world. And I don't even know of any other way to combat it apart from those coercive measures that I don't really approve of. But really, they're necessary evil at this point. And look at also what's happening in Germany is instructive. Like Dr. Abati just said, it's really good that they're able to, in the EU, fulfill their pledges to Africa. But their problem is not about a shortage of vaccines. They have the vaccines, but they just have people who don't want to take them. In Germany, it's in Eastern Germany, the eastern states, where it's people who have a more right-wing political slant that are not taking them. In some cases, it's the less educated people, but you also have doctors rejecting vaccines. So what do you say about that? It's a real problem. There's a trust deficit here, and it has come home to roost in the most disastrous way, because that stark warning that you refer to from the health minister is going to be true for a lot of people. People are literally dying because their trust has been abused in the past, generationally. It's really unfortunate, and I hope that we all learn from this across the world, that governments should be trusted. When people do not trust their government, it's a disaster.
Just to buttress the points you made about people in Europe not wanting to take the vaccine. In Austria, even members of the Freedom Party, the Austria Freedom Party, do you know that they joined the protest on Sunday when about over 100,000 persons took to the streets in protest, and the political party members were carrying their flag, So, but that's an ideological thing. The problem in Europe is of a different nature from ours, but we're all in it together.
Yeah.
So that's one thing specifically, and like you enunciated, Dr. Batian Tundu, the problems are there. The problem is the problem of trust. The problem of trust, not taking this vaccine, didn't start today. It started with other vaccine campaigns. How did we do it? Did we do it well? Did we encourage a population to trust us? Were we transparent with them? And that's why in telling people to take this vaccine, you have to be transparent and honest with them. You have to tell them that this is the reason why I want you to take it, for us to be able to save the population. Now, I want to salute and applaud the health authorities. Now they are taking the vaccines everywhere in Nigeria, which I thought they should have started long ago. There's a big vaccine drive. I hear before the end of January, they want to give about 55 million to the population. They've targeted 110 million. That's good. Make it available for them. And also, you to ensure that people, get on the bandwagon by using influencers. By using influencers. A big example is Davido. You think if Davido takes a video and puts it on Instagram of him taking a COVID-19 vaccine, you think a lot of people wouldn't take it? So take it to them. Use influencers.
It's interesting, you bring in that
no, but it's true.
Perspective, because apart from the lack of trust, governments around the world also have to fight infodemic, which seems to be a major challenge in Europe. And just the flip side of the arguments we're having this morning and conversation we're having this morning, in the US, vaccine mandates are actually working. About 95% of federal government workers have now received a dose of the vaccine because the deadline is drawing, and they are attributing that to the vaccine mandates issued by President Joe Biden. Yeah. So it depends on where you look at it from. So it's a mismatch. People just don't want to get the jabs in their arms for many reasons. So it's a mismatch of many things. Yeah, mandates somewhere, use influencers, like Dr. Batisse, give them jollof rice and pepper soup, add it in the mix. All we just want is that we want those vials to get out and get into the arms of people, vaccines to get into the arms of people. And I'm really happy. When the NAFDAC DG came out today to say, we've met every requirement possible, we can start manufacturing our own vaccine. Kudos to the Nigerian government, kudos to NAFDAC, kudos to everybody involved. I can't wait for us to start churning out our own vaccines and saving our population. I'm really happy this morning. But really I just want to quickly say the infodemic too is about trust. If you're hearing two contrasting stories and you choose to believe random people on the internet over your own government, that tells you everything you need to know. Well, thank you very much, Adesu Amoran. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.